In the comments, you often ask us for tips on how to effectively play on anti-aircraft guns with radar. This topic is a bit too extensive for the hotline, so we've decided to carefully analyze it in the Tactics and Strategy section. We've already talked about the basics of radar systems shortly after we introduced this mechanic into the game. If you missed it, take a look at episode 139 of The Shooting Range. And here we'll talk about rational tactical use and typical mistakes that often prevent players from maximizing their team's benefits. Let's start by choosing our position. At the beginning of the battle, SPAA gunners prefer to stay on their home turf. Indeed, why travel around the map at the risk of running into enemy ground forces when the effective radius of radar systems allows you to control a huge section of the sky without all this fuss? There is some logic here, but there's also a fatal flaw. Because an SPAA with a radar is one of the most hunted targets on the map, and the respawn point is the most obvious place to look for it. Sure, a helicopter with a thermal sight won't always distinguish your silhouette, but hey, what's that? Some piece of tech still standing on the enemy base? What else can it be besides an SPAA? That's right, pretty much nothing. Such behavior will give you away in no time. Instead, it's best to slowly move along the map, keeping close to your allies. That way, it'll be much harder to detect you from the air, and you'll find it a lot easier to cover your teammates. The main thing is not to rush headlong ahead of the Allied forces. Otherwise, you'll just give an easy frag to one of the enemy tankers. Moving on, don't keep the radar on constantly, especially if you've only cannon weapons installed. That way, you'll just scare the target away before it's in range. Instead, try activating the radar for a short time. Turn it on, examine the horizon, turn it off. This will be enough to prevent you from being taken aback by a cunning opponent flying around the map at low altitude. The exception here would be the British Stormer, which has an optical location system, so the radar warning receivers installed on many helicopters won't respond to it. The same is true for missile carriers. Yes, one of this class's key features is having a radar, which gives them a huge advantage in their fight against air targets, but it doesn't always make sense to turn it on. The reason is the same. You don't want to unmask yourself ahead of time. After all, it's often not at all necessary to lock onto the target. You can get things done with a manually controlled missile, and there are two valuable reasons to do so. Firstly, this approach will allow you not to disclose your position until the very moment of launch. And secondly, it'll be convenient when firing at helicopters hovering near the ground. As you know, at low altitudes, radar works noticeably worse due to strong interference, but it doesn't affect manual missile control. A competent game on SPAAs with radar represents a stealthy hunt in which your own camouflage is almost more important than constant airspace monitoring. The more you're able to catch the enemy by surprise, the more frags you will have on your account by the end of the battle.